Good morning, evening, or night, wherever you are. Welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time, as we wrap up Friday, 13th June, 2025. Let's see what stories are unfolding around us. European stock markets faced notable downturns amid heightened geopolitical tensions, especially following Israeli airstrikes on Iran. Investors sought safer investments, leading to weekly losses across European markets. Airline stocks declined, and overall caution increased due to the conflict. Chinese carmaker GAC's electric van division, Miraco Motor, under CEO Xiao Ning, intends to penetrate the European market. The company aims to secure a 10% market share with its electric vans, directly challenging established manufacturers such as Ford and Stellantis. Middle East. Israel conducted airstrikes on Iran, significantly intensifying the existing tensions between the two nations. These strikes had an immediate and destabilizing effect on financial markets, triggering widespread concern. United Kingdom. The UK's economic outlook is clouded by concerns that Finance Minister Rachel Reeves' spending proposals could drive up borrowing costs, as suggested by some experts. Semiconductors are now being viewed as a strategic imperative for the nation's economic future. Regulatory adjustments are underway to ease the operational burdens on alternative investment fund managers, AEFMs, including those with interests in Turkey. Despite these financial pressures, investment from India into the UK has reached unprecedented levels. UK-based startups are seeking further governmental assistance. In the technology market, one particular UK tech stock has declined by 33% in the past year, but its current valuation of 151p suggests it may be an undervalued asset. The edtech firm Pearson is planning to significantly expand its Indian workforce by 43% in the next 3 years. International financial transactions are feeling the impact of UK sanctions, illustrated by the delayed $10 million transfer from WHAM to SK Moscow. Russia-Ukraine conflict. In Ukraine, a Russian drone attack targeted Kharkiv, resulting in a deadly fire that claimed the lives of 2 residents. Against the backdrop of the continuing conflict, Donald Trump has publicly questioned the prevailing negative sentiment toward Russia. Volker suggests that financial constraints could compel Putin to consider a ceasefire in Ukraine. Global. Helmerich & Payne, a drilling company, faces potential challenges, according to its SWOT analysis, which has led to a shift in the stock outlook. Russia is actively expanding its influence in Africa by investing in education and cultural events. This strategy aims to foster long-term pro-Moscow sentiments. Amidst rising tensions in the Middle East, Russia has cautioned its citizens against traveling to Iran and Israel. President Putin has condemned Israeli strikes on Iran. He offered to mediate the conflict and urged Israel to pursue diplomatic solutions. The Russian ruble has strengthened due to rising oil prices, fueled by these Middle Eastern tensions. This has also led to an increase in Russian stock prices. Concerns are mounting that Russia might instigate a crisis in Transnistria. This could potentially destabilize Moldova ahead of its elections, according to Moldovan President Sandu. Reportedly, Russia was forced to relocate strategic bombers to a remote Arctic base due to Ukrainian drone attacks. Russia and Belarus are also strengthening their cooperation within the BRICS and EU frameworks. On June 13, 2025, the Russian stock market Merck's reported share prices across various sectors. These include the financial sector at 12.59 MSK, development enterprises at 16.29 MSK, retail and consumer goods at 13.59 MSK, and chemical enterprises at 14.59 MSK. Saudi Arabia is diversifying its economy and fostering international collaborations in multiple sectors. The nation is supporting the FIFA Club World Cup. Ericsson has established its regional headquarters in Riyadh. Tikmo, a Saudi financial service, has partnered with MoneyGram for cross-border money transfers. Saudi Arabia and Qatar are jointly providing financial aid for Syrian public sector salaries. The two countries are also co-hosting the Asian playoffs for the WCAFC. The FC MP Materials stock value increased after partnering with Saudi Arabia. The country is expanding its oil market share despite production capacity limits. OpenAI is in talks with Saudi and Indian investors for $40 billion in funding. Plant-based diets are reshaping Saudi agriculture, aligned with Vision 2030. Budget cuts in Saudi Arabia have resulted in a 77% reduction in megaprojects in early 2025. China's central bank has set the yuan's daily fixing against the US dollar at its strongest level in over 2 months, anticipating Federal Reserve interest rate cuts. Despite signals from Beijing about potentially easing rare earth exports, analysts warn that the risk of global supply disruptions persists. Huawei Technologies has shipped over 103 million smartphones and 21 million tablets using HarmonyOS despite ongoing U.S. sanctions. Comet, a Chinese aviation company, is reportedly bidding for a majority stake in Lao Airlines, aiming to expand its Southeast Asian market and overhaul the airline's operations. China Labor Bulletin, a Hong Kong-based group monitoring worker unrest, ceased operations due to financial constraints. At SBC's co-CEO, David Lau emphasized Hong Kong's crucial role in the yuan's internationalization by boosting offshore liquidity while upholding necessary safeguards. Rosatom projects increased shipping by Chinese firms via the Northern Sea route, requiring more nuclear-powered icebreakers. Turning to the United States, consumer sentiment rose in June, possibly due to a temporary easing of trade tensions with China and controlled inflation. Jefferies suggests that U.S. President Donald Trump may consider reducing his aggressive tariff policies, especially concerning China, adding to market uncertainty. Across the Asia-Pacific region, markets experienced mixed trading as investors evaluated claims of a finalized deal between the U.S. and China, demonstrating continued sensitivity to global trade dynamics. Israel's recent strikes on Iranian nuclear and military sites have sent ripples through global markets, triggering a surge in oil prices and a decline in Asian shares. Brent crude oil futures climbed to levels unseen since January 27th, and gold prices in India experienced a corresponding rise. The escalating conflict has led several Middle Eastern nations to close their airspace, negatively impacting airline stocks worldwide. Amidst the escalating tensions, Iran has vowed retaliation for the Israeli strikes. This development has deepened concerns about regional stability, prompting calls for restraint from world leaders. The surge in crude oil prices is fueling inflation concerns, particularly in India, placing added pressure on the Reserve Bank of India to manage the economic fallout. Adding to the market uncertainty, the potential for further escalation is influencing expectations regarding the Federal Reserve's monetary policies. The strikes, notably conducted without U.S. backing, further complicate the already tense geopolitical landscape. Consumers worldwide may soon feel the pinch as rising oil prices threaten to undermine efforts to reduce energy costs. The U.S. stock market faced turbulence, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropping 500 points due to rising oil prices, escalating tensions between Israel and Iran, and upcoming inflation data. President Trump's threat of global tariffs further destabilized the market, affecting major corporations like Apple and Boeing. Oil prices surged by 7%, adding to market unease. Bain Capital-backed Citiustech is eyeing acquisitions and a potential IPO, aiming to expand into Europe and Japan to capitalize on the growing demand for healthcare technology services. Jefferson Capital, backed by J.C. Flowers, is also considering a U.S. IPO, potentially valuing the company at $1 billion, 10 cents billion. Japan is considering a trade agreement with the U.S. as the G7 summit approaches. A U.S. Commerce official projects that Huawei Technologies will ship roughly 200,000 AI semiconductors in 2025, mainly within China. In the United Arab Emirates, Evident Group, a Hong Kong-based fintech company, has partnered with Zandbank to introduce a digital investment platform focused on alternative assets. Japan's Finance Minister Kato stressed open communication with market players for stable government bond activity amid investor meetings. The country faces rising bond yields, affecting global markets. Japan acts to protect car exports from possible U.S. tariffs. Geopolitical issues such as those between Israel and Iran lowered Japan's Nikkei stock index. The Prime Minister instructed the LDP executive to add cash handouts to the upcoming election pledge. Japan expects difficult Day 7 talks, as Prime Minister Ishiba said the nation won't accept a quick U.S. trade deal. President Trump approved U.S. Steel's merger with Japan's Nippon Steel, with a U.S. national security agreement. This follows U.S. Steel and Nippon Steel's finalized partnership to address national security after Nippon Steel's $14.90 billion U.S. Steel acquisition. India is actively working to bolster its domestic rare earth element production as a direct response to export limitations imposed by China, a topic recently discussed in a meeting between high-ranking officials from both nations. Economically, India saw foreign portfolio investors, FPIs, inject $346.94 crore into its stock markets this week. This investment was fueled by positive market sentiment after the Reserve Bank of India, RBI, announced a rate cut. Despite this influx of capital, the Sensex ended the week at 81,118.6, a drop of 573 points, and the Nifty 50 closed at 24,718.6, down 170 points. Vivek Rajaraman of Waterfield Advisors maintains a positive outlook on the Indian stock market, citing robust fund flows and consistent earnings, but advises caution regarding potential global economic headwinds. Furthermore, India and Canada have formalized an agreement to exchange intelligence pertaining to terrorism and criminal activities. The Tata Group's ongoing efforts to rehabilitate Air India's reputation following its acquisition in 2022 for $350 have proven difficult. The airline recently experienced a tragic incident involving an Air India Boeing 787 Dreamliner that crashed shortly after takeoff from Ahmedabad en route to London, resulting in 242 fatalities. Initial reports incorrectly stated 269 deaths. Turning to Canada, the nation has solidified an intelligence sharing agreement with India, focusing on collaborative efforts to combat terrorism and crime. In China, export restrictions on rare earth elements have spurred India to enhance its own domestic production capabilities. This issue was a point of discussion between top officials from both countries. The escalating conflict between Iran and Israel has sent tremors through global markets, resulting in considerable volatility. Oil prices surged by 7% as fears mounted over potential disruptions to global oil flows. The DAX in Canada mirrored Wall Street's decline, reflecting widespread market anxiety. Turning to the United States, the Dow Jones Industrial Average experienced a significant drop of 769 points after Iran's retaliatory actions against Israel. Market analysts are closely monitoring the situation, though a complete disruption of oil flows through the Hormuz Strait is deemed unlikely. Across the Pacific, Australia's Securities Exchange, ASX, displayed erratic trading, with oil prices spiking while Accent experienced a sharp 20% decline. The geopolitical tensions are adding to investor unease in the region. Meanwhile, in China, investors are exhibiting increased caution regarding new listings, moving away from their previously optimistic outlook. Speculation has emerged that the conflict could bolster demand for Chinese defense equipment, resulting in a surge in Chinese defense stocks. In Russia, President Vladimir Putin communicated to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu the necessity of resolving issues related to Iran's nuclear program through diplomatic channels, underscoring the global emphasis on de-escalation. South Korea is enjoying a resurgence in Chinese tourism, fueled by warmer relations and the promise of visa exemptions. This tourism boost arrives alongside robust financial activity, evidenced by over $9 billion in net foreign investment into South Korean stock and bond markets during May. The nation is also tackling financial reforms, with a focus on regulating convertible bond market manipulation and overhauling the tax system to incentivize dividend payouts as part of a wider stock market reform effort. Apartment prices are climbing in all 17 provinces, buoyed by optimism surrounding the new government. However, Japanese retailer Nitori is facing challenges, having shuttered its third South Korean store, raising questions about its future in the market. South Africa is currently grappling with a substantial exit of foreign investment, resulting in billions being withdrawn from the stock market and a subsequent decline in asset value. This downturn has effectively erased weeks of previous market gains. Adding to the economic complexities, South Africa is dealing with an estimated R4.5 billion in unclaimed dividends, a situation impacting roughly 375,000 citizens who are eligible to receive these funds. On a more positive note for economic development, Johannesburg is the host city for the Big Five Construct South Africa and South Africa Infrastructure and Water Expo, events designed to stimulate progress toward the nation's infrastructure and development targets. Agriculture is also a key focus, with South Africa actively working to increase its exports to China. In the realm of international relations, South Africa is leveraging soft power strategies in its bilateral agreements with the United States. Australia saw its stock market fluctuate, dipping for 2 days before bank stocks rallied, pushing it to a new high. Overall, Australian shares marked their 5th straight week of gains, though Middle East tensions tempered the results. Our capital venture expanded globally by launching an Australian subsidiary. WHAM Life, an associate of Thakral, is planning an Australian IPO, having secured underwriting. Turning to the United States, specifically Arizona, an inland desert fish farm is now raising barramundi, a tropical Australian fish. This venture sparks concerns about water usage amid the Colorado River crisis. Germany's Klingbeil is poised to bolster initiatives aimed at breaking the deadlock in EU capital markets. Despite widespread market vulnerabilities, German real estate stocks have demonstrated robustness, a stark contrast to the challenges faced by German banks. Broader German stocks are, however, significantly diminished against a backdrop of rising Middle Eastern tensions. Looking ahead, investment prospects are forecast in the European hospitals market, including Germany, from 2025 to 2030. Asian stock markets showed resilience amidst global tensions. Initial gains were almost wiped out due to the escalating conflict between Israel and Iran. Positive sentiment followed U.S.-China trade discussions, boosting market performance earlier in the week. Middle East tensions significantly influenced Asian and ASEAN markets, causing surges in oil and gold prices. The Hong Kong exchanges and clearing. HKX is strategically working to become a pivotal regional hub for companies across Asia. Brazil's JBS, a major meat producer, experienced a volatile debut on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker JBS. Shares initially dipped by approximately 3% before recovering to close about 3% higher. This listing sparked controversy due to allegations that JBS is profiting illegally from deforested lands within Brazil. Critics have urged the NICE to reconsider and potentially delist the company, citing environmental concerns and ethical considerations. United States President Trump's intervention in Nippon Steel's acquisition of U.S. Steel has cast doubt on the deal and may influence future foreign investment regulations. In other news, Apsiven, a Swedish pension fund, has sold all of its Tesla shares due to confirmed labor rights infringements within the United States. Turning to Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced new measures to support the country's artificial intelligence sector, including investments in research and talent development. Canada is also grappling with rising inflation, prompting discussions about potential adjustments to monetary policy by the Bank of Canada. Over in the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is facing increasing pressure to address the ongoing cost of living crisis, with unions threatening further industrial action. The UK government also unveiled new regulations aimed at curbing online misinformation ahead of the upcoming general election. Pakistan is set to receive over $6 billion in financial aid from Saudi Arabia, making the kingdom its largest foreign financier in fiscal year 2026. Simultaneously, Pakistani stocks are bracing for instability because of worries about a budget potentially burdened with taxes, influenced by IMF conditions. Turning to Canada, the nation is preparing to host a Group of 7 G7 meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump scheduled to attend. This occurs against a backdrop of existing trade disputes between the United States and its international allies. Canadian stocks closed with losses, the S&P TSX Composite dropping 0.42%. Switzerland's central bank is contemplating cutting interest rates to zero, which could create difficulties for the nation's banking sector. In related news, the Swiss government has approved a debated agreement with the European Union. Sweden and the Netherlands have both revealed intentions to raise their defense spending to 5% of GDP. But this move is in response to demands previously voiced by U.S. President Donald Trump leading up to the NATO summit. Syria's post-conflict economic revitalization will necessitate substantial financial assistance from international sources, according to the IMF's assessment. Singaporean shares saw a decrease as traders reduced their holdings amid escalating tensions in the Middle East, resulting in a 0.3% drop in the Straits Times Index, STI. Greece has granted approval for the Illich's prostate cancer SEMA-PET imaging agent. Belgium's credit rating has been lowered by Fitch due to ongoing concerns surrounding the country's budgetary situation. South African stocks have experienced a $3.70 billion losing trend, driven by selling activity from foreign investors. Colombia has put its fiscal rule on hold, a rule designed to restrict government deficits. Spain's government is getting ready for a legal battle concerning BBVA's offer to acquire Sabadell. Bangladesh's Yunus has indicated a February vote following political discussions. Taiwanese tech platform SkinPal is expanding its operations into the Indian market. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.